We'll get started in just a minute here. We've got a bunch of people joining us, but thanks for joining us today. All right. Thanks so much for joining us. I feel like the doorbells of people joining have slowed down a little bit. My name is Katlin Hess. I am the director of customer marketing here at G2, and really excited to talk to you today about reviews. I, prior to joining the G2 team, was a G2 customer, and so much of my day-to-day was focused on reviews. And so I am delighted to be joined by Rachel Bentley here, who's our Senior Director of Product Management at G2. We've got a lot of really great content for you today, but wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping before we got started. This meeting is a traditional Zoom meeting, and so you'll see you can share your camera, you can come off mute. During the presentation piece, we'd ask that if you have something to add or a question, you either raise your hand or drop it in the chat and we'll get to it at the end, but we'll also leave time for some discussion at the tail end of this session. So feel free to save that and then come off mute then for a conversation. If you have any follow-up questions that we don't get to today, I know both Rachel and myself are open to people reaching out to us either via email or on LinkedIn. Please feel free to add us. A recording of the session will be available on our office hours website, and then we also will send it out to anyone who registered. So if you're here, you likely registered, so you'll get that in your email in the next couple of days if you'd like to revisit it. And then, of course, if you need any more tips on generating reviews, responding to reviews, we've got some awesome courses available in G2 University. If you're a G2 customer, you can access that through your My G2 portal. At the very top of the page, there's a little question mark. Click on that and then click into G2 University. If you're not a G2 customer, we also have courses available. You can access that through our website, so sell.g2.com. And then under the resources dropdown, you can access G2 University that way. We've got courses on review gen, responding to reviews. You can also become G2 certified, which we love to see. And then finally, wanted again to thank you for joining us for this office hour session. We do these monthly on different topics that are super relevant to our G2 customers. And we want to keep it pretty casual, pretty conversational, but we also want to make sure that you're getting value from it. So Rachel and I have put together probably 15, 20 slides that we'll run through. And then, as I mentioned at the end, we'll have some time for conversation. So today's topics, what we're covering is how to turn a negative review into a positive. I know there's a lot of hesitation or scariness that comes from getting a negative or critical review. I still remember at my last company when we got our first 3-star review, it was like, oh my gosh, what do we do about this? I emailed Lauren, who was our customer success manager, and I'm like, what do I do with this 3-star review? And she's like, it's okay. And we'll talk about sort of what to do when those reviews come in. We're going to talk through how to respond to those reviews, which again, like that was my #1 priority. And then how to make sure you're making the most out of your reviews, both, critical and positive. So we'll talk through some of the ways you can leverage review content in your marketing campaigns, and then we'll save conversation for the end. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel to talk through some of turning our negative reviews into positives.
Okay, hello, my name is Rachel Bentley. I'm so excited to be here today. So as Caitlin mentioned, I'm the Senior Director of the Buyer Experience. So I've owned e-commerce experiences. I was in B2C for over 10 years, whether that be owning actually reviews on hundreds of thousands of websites, or really owning conversion. So how can I create confidence on experiences to get people to check out or convert? So I'm really excited to be talking to you about reviews today. And talking about why reviews mean trust. So trust is kind of this, I want to say metric, but it's more of a North Star. How do we create trust in our products? How do we create trust in our brands? How you do that is being really authentic and open. And part of that comes from reviews. So we know that 4.6, if you go above 4.6, users don't actually trust reviews above that. And the first thing that they do, so Katlin mentioned that 3-star review, the first thing users do when they get on these pages is filter by the lowest star rated, because they're like, hey, what's the dirt? I want to know why this did not work well for this company. And that's good because it actually instills trust. And therefore it gives you an opportunity to reply to those situations, because you can, whether those reviews exist, they most likely already do, or they will. Understanding that feedback is a gift and what you can do with that feedback is so important in understanding how reviews can actually gain trust with users regardless of the star rating. So again, feedback being a gift, I'm just going to give you an example. Because I come from B2C, what I end up doing is giving a lot of B2C examples. So this is from Crate & Barrel. If you actually go, not to give you homework, if you go to Crate & Barrel's site and you filter by 1-star reviews for some of like their best sellers, specifically on couches, you'll actually see how their responses not only are, hey, contact customer service, we're so sorry that happened, but it's actually informative. It's responding to say, actually, this is how you care for this couch, or this is how you go about using this product to its best usage and its intended usage. It's a lot of guidance, and you can see here by responding to each and every one of these, even if you decide not to buy this couch, it stays with you in your experience with Crate & Barrel as a brand. If you go to the next slide, if you then go to see another $5,000 couch and it's radio silent, you're actually just saying something to your users. This is on a marketplace site that doesn't reply to any 1-star reviews. So these people had terrible experiences with these really expensive products, and they probably are providing customer service, but they're not showing it on their site. And that's actually like, am I going to purchase this or even anything else from this brand, from this marketplace? Because are they going to stand by me? It's a little bit radio silent, and it's sending an unintended message. So if you leave a review in B2C for a restaurant, for example, because you had a horrible experience, you kind of expect a reply. In B2C, that's where expectations are set. Remember when getting something in 10 days shipped to you is really cool? That has like completely changed. Users' expectations are continuing to mount, and they're set in B2C, and B2B, we're kind of following along and we're trying to keep up. But how a user thinks about how they're leaving a review for a restaurant, for a jacket, for a refrigerator, that doesn't actually change when they get to software. They're expecting a reply. And a lot of times when someone is leaving a review, they've either had an anomaly experience that requires customer service. It's an indicator of how they're misusing the product or not using it to its fullest potential, or maybe they're not a right fit. Being an incorrect fit is okay. And I think about this in jeans. If I'm looking at jeans and I see someone that's 6'2" and they're like, hey, these are too short, and I filter by those reviews, and that 1-star review was like, hey, this doesn't work for me. I'm like, great, that's fine. I wish I was 6'2", but I'm not. So it's good to know that other people have had experiences with this product, but it doesn't actually apply to my situation. That can exist too in software, because maybe your software is built for a certain persona. It's built for a certain size market. And if you're not there building for that persona or that market, and that's not your target audience, the jeans didn't fit. It's okay. That's not a bad thing. People misuse products on a daily basis or don't use them to their fullest potential. I debated whether I was going to tell a story, but here I go. My first roommate after college, I came home and she said, everything is broken. I said, okay, hold on. She had plugged all her things into a power strip. And then she had plugged the power strip into the power strip because she thought it was a strip of power. People do things like this all of the time. Like, not maybe that as egregious of an example, but no, that's actually not how you use it. Let us help you use this to its fullest potential. And what you do by embracing reviews, whether they've misused it or they haven't had the experience you would have liked, is you're acknowledging their experience. You care about their experience. You're providing customer service and you're telling them you're here for them. And not only are you telling them that by replying to a review, you're telling every other person that comes to that page that you stand by your customers, you stand by your product, and you're here to get better and hear them. Because really what people want is to be heard and to be understood, and that to know that their experience, whether it's very unique or has happened many times, that they're going to be supported and that they're heard. Customers like end users do expect a reply within about a week. Again, thinking about B2C. And since a lot of companies don't reply to reviews in general, especially, again, you'll see that more in B2C, but in B2B, that still isn't something that's caught on. You can differentiate yourself. You can right or wrong. Software specifically can be so overwhelming to use. To see that there's someone to guide or to reply to whatever your problem is so powerful. Again, not to just that user, to anybody else coming to that page. And if I think about G2 specifically, and like what sets us apart, we are just sending so much traffic. We get the most traffic out of anyone that in this space. And so if you think about the power of that traffic and the intent signals you're getting, what aren't you getting if you're not replying to reviews? Because there is a unspoken value of that trust by what you're saying about your brand, whether a response exists or not. The amount of times too, I've had people, so I reply to, shocker, I reply to every single review on g2.com about G2. And people are delighted, even if they were really mad at us, they are delighted to hear from someone within a week, or just in general. And what I'm going to kind of go through is some of like the codification of that, because it can be kind of overwhelming to be like, I have to reply to every single review every single week. It's kind of finding your system, and we're going to talk about that. So there are 4 places that I find that we route resolutions to review most commonly. Customer service, hey, this didn't go well. As I mentioned on like the example of the marketplace of the couches, my guess is they're probably providing customer service in some way, shape, or form for those reviews. If you go to create a new filter, they actually, by those 1-star reviews, you can actually see that they're like, hey, Jane says my associate Susan helped you with this already. I'm so glad we could resolve this. And they're closing the loop of actually what happened. Customer service is being provided either way. So take credit. Take credit for the customer service that you are already investing in by replying to it and making sure that you're closing a loop where everyone can see, where you have a platform that everyone can see. Operations, every operations team, every operations person I've ever met is like, hey, how can we do this better? How can we scale this? How can we go faster? And really putting people over process, you're showing that each individual experience, if there was a process error, hey, how can we improve this for the future? Even if you failed that user in the moment, thank you for your feedback. We are looking at our processes in these ways, or just overall to improve. Specifically for me, for product functionality, I'm going to make a generalization about all product managers from my experience. Buckle up. I take every single thing people say about any product or feature or enhancement that I've ever built extremely personally. So if you write a review about a product, you're actually like writing me a review about how I'm doing as a person. And I've found that in 99% of product managers I've ever worked with. This is something that product managers are constantly doing. you take data points from different places every other day. By codifying some of that data too, if you have themes to improve, you literally are using reviews to listen, to respond, but also to act. How can I improve my product? How can I better instrument this feature, or see that I have white space of opportunity, or see where I can truly improve? And then documentation. So documentation, again, sometimes people just don't know how to use your product, and maybe you have an opportunity to guide them to do it better. A lot of times what I have found when it comes to documentation is I know that that it's not, pardon me, when I'm replying to the review, I'm like, hey, this isn't how that works. And then I go look in the documentation and I say, oh, shoot, we don't have documentation that explains this. So I found white space of how to help us help ourselves, but also guide customers if they're looking at our documentation and that's why they had a poor experience. So that one, I'm addressing that one in the moment, but I'm addressing it for future users too. Once upon a time, I owned product pages at Sears and Kmart. And this was a long time ago, but specifications and dimensions of refrigerators that didn't always exist in images. What we found is that people kept getting these refrigerators and they didn't fit because they didn't look at the specifications. Now, if you go to any website that sells refrigerators, or really anything that has to fit properly in your home, the product images provided includes pictures with dimensions. And part of that is, one, man, it must stink to get a refrigerator delivered and then it doesn't fit. That's truly so disappointing. But two, that costs the company a lot of money. So if you think about how you go about improving your product, or improving the information about your product that you are giving to either your prospects or your current customers, how can I take what people are saying about my product to improve how it's used and to make sure that they're getting the ROI, whether to make that sale or to reduce churn? And that's where I see documentation come up the most, and where the power of reviews and documentation or communication really come together. I'm seeing some chats. Caitlin, just keep me honest if there are any questions you want me to engage with in the moment.
Nothing yet, but if anyone has any questions, I see Shannon. She posted that she responds to every single review and every single comment. Shannon, we love that. And we'll talk about sort of why that's important, and really how to get started with responding to reviews, and some tips for how to build those messages. Like I mentioned, when we got that first 3-star review, it was like, oh my God, what do I do with that? And so Rachel, would love for you to talk about like how can people get started, or how should they be thinking about setting that up?
So I didn't bury the lead because that's the title of the slide. Part of this comes from really us, like G2 embracing a culture of feedback. We're a feedback company, so it's probably a little bit easier when I talk about our culture and our virtues as a company to really say this is ingrained in our day-to-day. But embracing a culture, of feedback means that this is a collaboration amongst a lot of different teams that all really care and want to get better. At a previous company I worked with, I didn't know that there were reviews. As the product manager, I didn't know that there were reviews about my product on g2.com that I would have loved to know existed. I think sometimes people tell themselves stories that, because everyone's busy, right? They don't want to go ask that person because they know that they're so busy. Whether that be product, whether that be operations, whether that be another area of the business, because they own g2.com or they own this relationship. I personally would have loved to know that this exists, because one, I want to know what is going well with my product, but two, I really, again, this is like, what are they saying about me behind my back that you didn't tell me? Like it felt like I was left out of a very important conversation. So by replying to every single review, I don't know everything. I need help in that process, because a lot of times I have subsequent examples, but one was something happened with a gift card for a review that didn't transfer to Apple Pay wallet. I don't know what happened there. And what I did was go to customer service and they went through it with me because they were able to find the case and tell me exactly what happened. And then how we can instruct the user to rectify the situation so that we get them their gift card. That is really important because not every one person should or does know every single thing about your product or how to support a user in whatever case that they have. So it's not just product marketing. It isn't just one team, it's your entire company, because each person has a part and an instrumental part that we all appreciate in making sure that your product is being used in market well, and what goes into that.
And the one piece I really want to underline there is it's not just a marketing activity. I know probably a lot of us on this call are marketers, probably even customer marketers. And so for us, reviews are often a big piece of our day-to-day job, and we're really close to it. And we, you know, I've been there where I'm asking the team like, hey, I need some help with review generation. And it's like, I need some help, but really it's a company effort, and the way we show up publicly is important. And so I think making from start to finish, like, yeah, review gen, that should be a shared effort across our sales team, across our customer success team. We should be building it into conversations, into our customer life cycle. In the same way, that feedback should be just part of what you do as a company, because it is so valuable. It's basically like running a customer survey, except this is like unsolicited feedback from your customers in a very public way. And then the other piece too is not just sharing the critical feedback. Like, I know Rachel loves when she sees something that is like, ooh, I can action that, or, oh, that's great feedback, I can change something. But I think also celebrating when you have that positive feedback is a really great way to get people bought in and excited about the feedback you're getting from your customers. And I feel like we're very lucky at G2 that Rachel from the product team is the one who, like, I don't know that there's ever been a review, Rachel, that you haven't responded to before I've taken a look at it. You're just like so on top of it. And I know that doesn't happen everywhere, but I think just building that into your process, whether it is like, hey, me as the customer marketer, I own this, and so I'm going to make sure it gets routed properly and I'm going to be responding. I think that's great too. But sort of like having that structure in place really comes from building that culture that embraces feedback. So just wanted to underline that before we jump into, okay, so you've gotten a review, critical or positive. How do you respond to that? And so the first W of responding to reviews is the who. And so we talked about how at G2, oftentimes that's our product team. We also have, we have a couple different products ourselves on G2. And so if it's something with buyer intent, Allie from our product team, she often beats me to it as well. But if it's something that's maybe around like, hey, I had a really great experience with my customer success manager. A lot of times we'll have one of our customer success leads reply, or, hey, I'm really struggling with this case that's been open for weeks, and we'll have our head of support reply. And so I think by mapping out ahead of getting the review, who's going to respond based on the content is a really good way to help streamline that, but also to help customers feel heard. And so if you can, which again, like, I know we're kind of living in an ideal world because everyone across the board at G2 understands customer reviews and why they're important. But I think mapping the response to the person who owns the initiative that's being mentioned in the review is sort of a best practice, or having like one designated captain that could be your customer marketer who's always responding, but who knows where to direct that feedback internally, and then how to make sure they're closing the loop on that review is really important. And then the what should be include a thank you for feedback. Rachel said it at the beginning, feedback is a gift. And we should all be really grateful that people are taking the time to leave us this feedback, especially in a public way. Addressing the reviewer by name is just a really good way. I always think back to like Dale Carnegie 101 is people love the sound of their own name, but it is important, and it makes it feel more personalized because it is more personalized when you're responding in that way. And then reference back any specific points that they left in their review. So if it's a specific product feature, something about the support team, something about their success manager or account team, really making sure that you are acknowledging the specific content of the review goes a really long way in terms of making the customer feel heard. And then the where, this is hopefully the easiest one. Where should you respond to reviews? The answer here is wherever they left the review. And so on G2, we make this super easy. If you have a review, you can click right basically below the review to respond to it there. The reason for this one is because that's where the customer is expecting to hear from you. But two, I think Rachel mentioned this too, like responding to reviews is marketing in and of itself, because people who are shopping for your solutions on a site like G2, they're looking at those critical reviews and they're seeing how you respond. And so responding where the review was left and addressing those specific things are really impactful. And then the when, we talked about this too, in our day-to-day lives, we expect a response. So B2B buyers also expect a response. And the answer to when here is really like as soon as possible, but definitely within a week. And then one last piece that I'll leave you with here in terms of responding to reviews, I think people often, and myself included, like I said, we got that 3-star review. It's like, oh gosh, we have to respond because it's critical. But really you should be responding to as many reviews as possible. I know teams are strapped and so it can be hard. But I would say like start with your 3-star or lower and then continue to grow. And as you sort of build that process out, and I know Rachel will talk a little bit about her process for responding to reviews on G2. You can just get better and better at building out that culture of feedback and the marketing through responding to reviews. And so I'm really excited because Rachel agreed to let us share some examples of responses she has left to customer reviews. So Rachel, would love to turn it back over to you to walk us through some of those.
And again, with these 4 W's, you're good at what you practice. So to Caitlin's point, you can like start slow. I'm at the point now that some of these, when I started, I wouldn't have been able to reply to. I would have needed a lot more time, but now it's truly a muscle. So you're good at what you practice. So making this part of your culture and practicing it and making that space weekly or whatever that looks like. I have time blocked every Thursday afternoon personally. I'll go through my whole process after this, but yeah, it's a very powerful practice that, again, just like buying software, can be really overwhelming at first, but it's something that if you embrace and you really take in to say, okay, this is the power, this is what I can do with these, it's not overwhelming. It takes me 15 minutes really each week. Okay, so for the first example, so this user said that in the campaign that they were having issues with, they said that the dollar amount, because like, for example, write a review for $5, write a review for $25, whatever it was that they didn't know the dollar amount, which is always super clear. And then there was an issue with location. So based on where they were located, it was saying that that wasn't valid, was the story I was telling myself. Obviously, I needed additional clarity. What I wanted to do, though, is not just ask the user to add a ticket, because that's, hey, you had a problem, do something else. Add additional context here, giving the user options. I did shop this ahead of time because I was trying to understand what happened, and both customer support and our email team said this doesn't make sense, we need to find out more. So again, what I did was, here's 2 different paths for resolution. I want to find more, and I am really concerned, and I replied within a week. This was another anomaly. This was the Amazon wallet one that I referenced. They were trying to redeem a gift card from 2021 on Amazon wallet, and we didn't have that functionality then. So they had gotten a gift card in 2021. They hadn't redeemed it. And now they were trying to do it in a way that we do have available. We didn't have available at that time. Again, this is something that happened to them. Their experience is really valid. But I need more information and additional, because this review was anonymous. I need additional information in order to support them. So a comment wouldn't really have helped me in the situation. I need them to add a ticket because I am going to make sure that we help you since the functionality had changed since they had gotten the gift card. So it was an anomaly, but we're going to make sure that they got the gift card that they were looking for. A lot of times, I'd say 90% of our reviews can be codified, meaning I have a document of responses and articles and like my most frequently used. A lot of them are actually cached in the way that I respond, so I can just quickly get to it. But a lot of times, like, so for example, hey, my review was rejected and I don't know why. This is one that is in that 90% of this is something that happens frequently. So they are upset that their review was rejected for A, B, and C reason, and they don't understand why. We do send emails about rejections, but also giving them a second step to say, hey, here's why your review was potentially rejected, giving a link to documentation, as well as giving them a response to follow up. So for review notifications, we have a Slack integration. You have my G2 notifications that you can also reply there, and we have email notifications. Personally, because when we talk about the culture of feedback, Slack is what I personally use because G2 uses Slack for internal communications. So everyone in our company is on Slack. And what I have is a Slack channel of our Slack integration. We get a notification every single time that we get a review. So I always use that to either say, hey, I need help with this one, and I tag the specific person from another area of the business. Or what I do is I'll reply to each one once I've responded. This helps me kind of manage my own work list and again, pull people in where it's appropriate. Again, I have a 30-minute block every Thursday afternoon. If I have to move the block, I move it to earlier in the week. Sometimes I have like 5 minutes between meetings, so I'll just get to some of the reviews. It's a very quick process, especially once you have some of these reviews codified into like your themes. And again, when you have to pull other people in, sometimes it takes more time, but usually it doesn't take me more than 15 minutes per week. I do love the Slack integration too.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rachel. I feel like this is super helpful when you think about like, how do you craft a review? And one thing I want to call out or just sort of underline too is in all of those responses, Rachel was providing a next step. So it wasn't just like, hey, so sorry to hear that that was your experience. Good luck. It's, so sorry to hear about that. Would love to help solve this. Here's the immediate next action. And I think that's so important, that closing the loop and directing them. In this case, it was, please submit a ticket. We need some more information. Other times I've seen like, and Allie, who's our product manager for buyer intent, she does this a lot. She's like, that's great feedback. I would love to learn more about how you're using this. Here's a link to my Calendly. Let's set some time to talk if you're open to it. I just feel like that is such a great way to make people feel like, wow, my feedback's being heard, it's being valued, it's being directed to the right place, and I know what's going to happen next. I think
I did that recently last week with one, because there was one that said there was spam on our site somewhere. And that set off red lights for me. Where are you seeing that, sir? So I did send a request follow-up just like that as well, because sometimes your end users pick things up before you do. That's how bugs are reported. So how can you leverage reviews in that same way to try to get ahead of things?
Yeah, so smart. So we're going to shift gears a little bit here. and talk really quickly about amplifying the voice of your customers. And so we talked a lot about how you can leverage critical reviews internally, how you can even leverage positive reviews internally. But how can you leverage those positive reviews and the positive feedback publicly and in your marketing or sales campaigns? And so we've got a few tools if you're a G2 customer that you have access to that I want to just highlight. I picked like my top 3 as a customer marketer because I want to make sure that every customer marketer who is a G2 customer knows that this is available to them. The first one here is our marketing widgets. This is a really easy way to incorporate either your G2 badges or content on your website, across email signatures, really anywhere you'd like to include customer proof. It's a super easy way. Like you basically go in, you customize it, you grab a little code snippet and you drop it wherever you're looking to put it. We've got, you can see here sort of like 4 different flavors of what this looks like. The first is our grid widget, which is where you're falling in that quadrant. The second is a review snapshot. This is like a small one, but it has your overall star rating plus a customer quote. Our star rating widget, which is a really easy way to actually, you can either ask for reviews using this one or direct people to read more reviews. And then the last one is our testimonials widget, which pulls customer quotes and individual ratings, and you can embed those. I've seen them on blog posts, I've seen them on websites, but a super easy way to like immediately action on review content that you have today. The next one here is our crowd quotes. And this one is like, for customer marketers, I feel like such an, like a solution to a problem that I know we all have. I'm constantly getting asked like, do we have a case study for this specific use case in this specific segment and this product category or industry? And my answer is often like, no, but we have this one that's either similar, or let me direct you to this crowd quotes page. And so what you can do here is you can take all of your reviews and actually highlight specific review snippets. You can then go in and tag those. So I can say like, this is a mid-market quote in the financial industry talking about buyer intent. And so when I get those requests for case studies, which we're never going to have thousands of case studies, no matter how long we work. But instead I can direct them to a quote that's not only from a customer, but is publicly verifiable, is available on G2. And then you can direct, if they use that quote, they can direct people to see more quotes like it on G2. And so this one is like a, oh gosh, it's funny. I didn't even know that the tag here was must have. I was going to say it's a must have for customer marketers. So if you are a customer, I would say like go in today, check that out, get started on that, and your sales team will love you. And then finally, this is one that I actually did not know was a G2 feature until I started working here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I had this. This is a tool called reference pages, and similar to crowd quotes, you can pull quotes that are either specific to a region, specific to a segment, specific to an industry, and it creates a landing page that has a CTA at the very top and is populated with all of these quotes. You can highlight or spotlight specific quotes or content, and you can build as many landing pages as you want. And so if your demand gen team is running a campaign or they're looking for a touch point in a nurture stream, and they're trying to target a specific segment, or we'll use it here when we're talking to our EMEA customers or APAC customers, we've got specific landing pages for that. We've got one for our buyer intent tool that is just customers who are leveraging that tool and seeing results. And the other cool thing with this is one of the questions we ask on every review form is, are you willing to be a reference for this company? And so beyond being able to leverage those in a reference page here, that's also a like feeder program. This is sort of a side tangent, but a feeder program for your reference program or your advocacy program. It's a group of people who've already been willing to speak publicly on your behalf and they've opted into being a reference. And so it's another really great way to uncover some of those like hidden secret advocates. But the reference pages are like, I always say, like secret weapon. And so to kind of wrap up this portion, I wanted to share a couple examples of people I've seen do this well. So the back one on the left there is Learnerbly. This is one of their reference pages that they ran. You can see the quote here, G2 is the only review platform that made it quick and easy. That is actually taken directly from our website. We use quotes from G2 on our website all the time. And then in the back right shelf, that was a blog post that they published about one of their new products, and they embedded reviews about that product directly on that blog post announcement page. And then in the front here, you can see Phenom is leveraging quotes across their social channels, and they're pulling quotes and G2 star ratings and pushing those out as sort of just general content that they share across social. So I know that was a lot very quickly. But obviously Rachel and I are super excited about both generating reviews, responding to reviews, how you action on those. And we'd love to open it up to anyone here who might have any questions. You can either drop those in the chat or feel free to raise your hand. We'll call on you to come off mute. I know there's a lot of people here, so don't want to be talking over. So anyone have any immediate questions?
Crystal asked if it's possible to enable email notifications for suite profile reviews, and I'm on it. Yes.
Oh, awesome.
Not even I'll give this feedback. I hear your feedback. I got it.
Maureen, I see you raised your hand.
Hi guys, this was really helpful, so thank you. I did admittedly jump in a few minutes late. So I am our one and only customer marketing manager here, and there's a lot going on, a lot on my plate. And while I do go through all of our G2 reviews, my G2 block is on Friday morning, Rachel. While I do go through them and I live and breathe by that Slack notification because I tag the CSM in that, I've been bad about responding to reviews. So I guess my question here is, because I actually was a CSM here before moving into the customer marketing team, so I'm very capable of answering any questions. We don't get a lot of negative reviews, which is great. Should it be me? Should I be having the CSMs going in there and commenting? Should it be someone else? I'm curious for best practices on that front.
I have found that it's easier just to have one person do it and then someone contribute. Okay. In my experience, sometimes CSMs would prefer to be the one to reply to it, but it's also awkward if they're the ones talking to them all the time. It's like, it's kind of like, oh, I'm giving general feedback. Hi, I'm over here too. Like, you can't escape me. So I do think my recommendation would be that you reply to all of the reviews, just have one that one central location, and then ask for input.
Okay, awesome. That's helpful. Thank you.
And we feel you, Maureen. We're a customer marketing team of 2, but I think everywhere else I've worked, I've been a customer marketer.
Have a great
You get it. Yep. I'm the first to ever do this. So we're like, are you advocacy? Are you rep driving? Like, we'll never know. We'll never know.
That's awesome. Anything else? In the meantime, Rachel, I actually have a question for you. So, like Maureen mentioned, when you're a customer marketing team of 1, you're paying attention to reviews all the time. And so if someone's at an organization where like it's definitely seen as a marketing role and it's a marketing activity, and so you customer marketer should be responding, how do you approach your product team to tell them about reviews, or how do you get them involved in responding to reviews or even just listening to review content?
I think it goes back to the culture of feedback. My story is the software company I worked at before. I didn't know this existed. So I didn't, because no one wanted to bother me. Because product managers in general, we say no 99% of the time. So it's almost like a learned behavior. I'm not going to ask them to do anything else, right? This is something that I know that most product managers would want to participate in. But again, it goes to the culture of feedback. So as a leadership team, or as whatever your setup is, to have this conversation of, here is how I'm going to approach this. This is what help looks like. This is what support looks like to make this a successful program for us as a brand, but also to act on and capture this feedback in an actionable way. Because again, feedback is a gift and can help you, your product roadmap. I have so many things on the product roadmap, from reviews and NPS that we are collecting and seeing some trends. And that's what a product manager is doing all day, is taking inputs of data to both challenge and inform their current roadmap. So from my point of view, it's having the conversation. It's a lot easier to start a document or start a agenda than it is to edit it. But saying, do we agree that this is important? And I think there's so much information both in this presentation, but also anywhere you look online that talks about the power of reviews and why this is fundamental for your business, and starting there to really get buy-in from those cross-functional teams, whether that be product or operations or customer service. Again, you're doing all these things anyway. Take credit.
Yeah, I love that. And I've also talked to customers who they make review content part of their weekly or monthly product all hands, right? Or I love what Maureen said about having it in the Slack channel and you're tagging the CSM. I think that's great, whether it's critical or positive. And I think it's a good way to get people excited. Maureen, did you have another question?
I love it.
Sorry,
Keep
sorry
coming.
guys. As you can tell, G2 is a big part of my my responsibilities, and the whole company is bought in. We're also very, very lucky. I work for a customer success software platform, so our customers are front and center constantly, which is great. I'm very lucky in that sense. So everybody's looking at it. My question for you is around review generation itself, because I'm responsible for reaching out to folks, getting more people to leave reviews, of course, right? And we do have incentivized campaigns, but my question to you is, because we have automation set up to be powering emails, is there a best practice? Do you guys update those emails on a regular basis? Are they segmented? If I know this is an enterprise customer, they get a slightly different email than my mid-market, my SMBs. Again, question remains, do we change that every 6 months so they're not getting the same email over and over again?
Right.
Any thoughts on that?
I have so many thoughts on this. Okay, so email is one way to go about this, right? And you should be updating that, but I think to me, that's kind of like testing whispers, right? Because are they really going to notice if it's slightly different? And the exhaustion of the ask, is they going to really notice? The most powerful review strategy is a diversified review strategy. So what I mean is, it's not just asking in one way. A lot of people do reply to emails, but a lot of people are open their email and say, okay, this is how I'm going to engage. But a lot of times that's not the moment. Just how people learn differently, they respond differently to different prompts. So what we have is integrations with different NPS softwares. We have review widgets always on, so it's in your app as well, so that you're asking in different moments because different people are motivated by different prompts. And by having always on collection in a few different ways, what you can guarantee is that review volume that users expect. Because again, if we're only chasing reports, for example, it's kind of obvious to an end user, hey, why are these 2.5 months old? They only have reviews from 2.5 months old. Software releases every 2 weeks. Having that influx of reviews constantly coming in is another way to create trust. Because if you look at a product that hasn't gotten reviews in a long time, because you are busy, if you have to each time make an effort to get reviews, it could fall by the wayside because you have so many things on your plate. By having integrations on, and we can send follow-up information about that as well, it's a light switch. You can always have that on and make sure that you're getting that constant influx of reviews without the effort.
Yeah, I hear you. So that's really, really helpful. I'm curious if you guys have other places other than, let's say, your NPS or within G2, are you putting the ask out for reviews anywhere else? My fear with putting it everywhere is sorry, we are kind of gamifying the system. I want my happy people to be reviewing. You know what I mean? Because I will say, literally everyone up to our CEO. In fact, our CEO is probably the most interested in our G2. Like, we are constantly looking at the momentum grid, constantly looking at our place in all of the everythings. So for us, relevancy really matters too. But I'm worried about putting it everywhere. And I don't
Goes
know.
back to that first slide, right? Because you're also missing out on fundamental feedback.
Yeah. I hear you.
And if you, it doesn't matter if positive or negative, the review is a review in terms of your algorithm. So like the more frequent your reviews, the better placement you'll have. And the reason you don't also want to shop for those reviews, you are exhausting that audience and you actually don't know. So by controlling that, you're doing yourself a disservice in terms of trust, in terms of feedback. And like, because that is such a gift, you also are adding more effort. You're adding so much more effort for yourself versus we have review widgets that can just sit, and people that are like, again, motivated different ways. We haven't, by limiting ourselves to who we believe is the happiest, we're really diminishing or just like reducing our audience to such a teeny tiny portion.
Yep, I totally hear you.
It's not a reflection of actually how people feel, because again, if we removed reviews, so like if I go back to B2C and you see on an Amazon profile, or you see that on like a e-commerce apparel website, that there's only 5-star reviews or there's only happy people, you actually might not convert because you don't believe that.
Right. I completely hear you. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would add to that too, like along with the always on, like thinking about moments in the life cycle where your customer is super engaged with you, or like you also don't want to just make it everywhere. You might get someone who's like, they've been a customer for 2 weeks and they're not fully implemented and they're really frustrated because implementation is hard, and like that's good feedback to have, but it's also not a super accurate picture of what your actual product experience is. And so
that's what we don't want that either. Yeah.
I usually look at like, where are the places that I know a customer is actively engaging with us or has taken an action that shows me that they're actively engaged. And so like, I think about one of our customers, we just did a case study with them. They are automating apps to be like, after they've taken 8 actions in their platform, that's when they make the ask. They turned on the automated like native G2 in-app ask and set it so that it's like, okay, when we know that they're ready to give us feedback because they've done enough, let's ask them to leave us a review. They got like 1,000, they have a lot of users, but they got 1,000 reviews in 3 months. And even like we started the case study to the time we were ready to publish it, it's like, oh, it's actually now 1,200. And like, oh, okay, great, we'll update everything. So I think just like when people ask me like, what's your advice for generating reviews? I'm like, just ask people. Like, if they're willing to share their feedback publicly, they're going to do it. And if they're not, they're not. And so giving them the opportunity is the most important one.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, I'm really big on in-app content as well. So question for you on the native in-app for you guys, because our product can actually do in-app functionality as well. So I definitely have that as a backup. But when you say always on, is it like quite literally always on every page?
No. I love users. I wouldn't do that to them. I wouldn't do that to you either. No, you can control the prompt in terms of the meaningful moments, but also you could put it in places that you know would get the interaction. So you can have a widget, you can have it pop up for if it's an integration, for example, it shows up at the end if someone did like, if you have an NPS provider, it shows up after that, you can integrate there. So it's again, the meaningful moments that of interaction on your site, you don't want it everywhere. That would be annoying.
I agree. I was like, always on, how always are we
one of those chatbots that won't leave you alone. You're like,
go away.
Trying.
I thought I X'd out of this. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Rachel, we have a question in the chat that I have some thoughts on, but would love your take on this. So Matt asked, he said, I know this is a webinar that's G2 specific, but are there any best practices on distributing your review asks across other review sites?
Okay, so I think it depends on again, to what we were saying to Maureen about like, the most about your user. So for me, I'm part of this, I want to be very specific about G2 has the most traffic. So that's where I'm going to leave that response of like where you would distribute that. Where are you getting the best information from, and the deepest insights? And then what does it mean and what is your goal for a Google review? If your goal is traffic, for the most part, G2 is doing quite well to help you on Google. That might be overlapping. I am not an expert in terms of like Google review versus G2 review. What I'm going to do is ask Ross Briggs, who is our SEO genius here at G2, to better answer that question. And what we can do is email you, Matt, as a follow-up.
Awesome. Yeah, I would also say like putting my customer marketer hat on and thinking about like, yeah, there are a lot of review sites and your company might be investing in, you know, any number of those. And so as you're thinking about your strategy, I always say like, start by prioritizing where your buyers are. And so generally speaking, my first step would be like, you know, whatever my product category is and the word reviews and what site pops up first, what's at the top of that list. In most cases, everywhere I've worked, that's been G2. That's why we invested in G2. But I would then take like, okay, that's my number one priority site. And so the bulk of my asks are for G2. And then from there, I would sort of waterfall down, like maybe 75% of my customers get the G2 ask and 25% get an ask for another review site, or, you know, whatever that breakdown looks like for you. And then typically speaking, I think about it the same way I just shared with Maureen, like what are those meaningful moments in the customer lifecycle and how can we make sure that we're sharing an accurate representation of like all of our customers across all of those sites. And so it's more of an art than a science, I guess, but really thinking about segmenting your customers and segmenting your asks. And then for the most part too, like as long as you're not asking for a review like once a week or once a month, like I would say you could think about quarterly reaching out to the same people, even if they've already left you a review somewhere else. Again, they were willing to give you feedback there. If you're building that culture of like, we really value your feedback and you're showing them that you value their feedback and you're actioning on it, they're probably going to be pretty likely to give you feedback and leave a review in another place too. So it's really like, there's not a great answer to that question, but it's thinking about like, what is my priority and then segmenting customers from there. Oh, Maureen, you got some great questions here.
Question on Crystal.
Sorry, I'm really taking over. I'm so sorry, guys.
No, you're fine. Crystal asked a question about notifications for suite profile reviews. What I'm going to do is give this up. I'm going to chat with both my manager and then the person that owns those notifications, because I saw your other message too about you don't want to get it for all, but making sure we're able to control, hey, I want notifications for these specific ones, and then we can follow up specifically with you. Maureen, we actually have a review updating roadmap to make it easier once you've replied to ask for an updated review, to close the loop, because a lot of times, again, with customer service, or actually you ended up solving their problem. So how do we ask for that follow-up to turn a negative into a positive? We have a roadmap for that. We also do ask for review updates automatically every 6 months to say, hey, is this still your experience, or what has changed? Because we do think it's really powerful that if someone's been using it for 6 months and they had a positive or negative experience, that it really does that still ring true? Has anything changed? Because software changes every 2 weeks. What I personally have seen is a lot of times the negative experiences that haven't been replied to, those review updates maintain the same. Whereas the review experiences that someone has replied to, those review prompts for review updates end up positive. But to that point, we do have I have a specific roadmap on review updating and optimizing that to bring up frequency of reviews, whether that be because of the reply to the review and you have provided customer service, or because you have a small subset of customers, so you don't have as many customers, so you want to be saying, hey, are you still happy, or what are your updates from your experience with the software, because it's very relevant.
I love that. And so I think you had said like 6 months later, you're asking, is that still the case? Okay. And is that on a cycle, right? If they don't update their review, they get it again in 6 months. Like,
Yes.
And is that native G2 functionality, or are you doing that on your own?
That is automatic G2 functionality.
Oh, wow. Do I have to set that up, or is it just doing
Nope,
it?
I already did it for you.
Oh, you're my hero. Thanks, Rachel.
The less you have to do.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I know we are right at time here. So thank you everyone for joining us today. This was super fun to get to chat with other people who are as excited about reviews as us. We do have, as I mentioned, like 2 next steps if you're interested in learning more, either through G2 University, but we'd also love to see you on a future office hour session. And as we offered in the beginning, if you have any additional questions, Rachel or I would be super happy to connect with you, share more information, or collect any feedback you have for us. But thank you again for joining us, and I hope we will see you on a future session. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey.